We need to talk about advice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the standard responsible advice we've all been sort of spoon-fed since we were kids.
Oh, yeah. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. Slow and steady wins the race. Diversify, diversify, diversify. I mean, it's the golden rule of survival, right?
It is. It's the playbook for staying safe. It's how you make sure you don't lose everything. And it feels responsible because, it minimizes the chance of a total disaster.
Right. But here's the question that's been bothering me while reading through our stack for today. What if playing it safe is actually the most dangerous move you can make?
Mm-hmm.
Or at the very least, what if playing it safe guarantees that you will never be, exceptionally successful?
That is the uncomfortable question we are tackling today. Because if you look at the math of extreme success, it rarely comes from safety.
We are looking at a counterintuitive idea that completely flips that standard advice on its head. The sources today argue that the secret to winning big isn't accumulating consistent small gains. It's about doing absolutely nothing for a long time and then knowing exactly when to go all in.
It's a terrifying concept for most people. I mean, we are wired to be busy. But the material we're breaking down today argues that aggressive patience, and I love that term, aggressive patience,
Me too.
is really the only mathematical path to outsized returns.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're continuing our series on decision-making frameworks, and we are pulling this card from the deck, card 6. The title is simple but heavy. Betting heavy.
And to understand this, we are drawing from a really fascinating source titled The Art of the Fat Pitch. And what I love about this is that it synthesizes wisdom from two completely different worlds.
Right.
On one side, you have the investment genius of Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's legendary partner.
And on the other side, you have batting science, specifically the techniques of arguably the greatest baseball hitter who ever lived, Ted Williams.
It sounds like a strange mix, finance and sports, but when you overlay them, they're teaching the exact same lesson. They're talking about the discipline of the weight.
So our mission today is to uncover the mathematical and, I think, psychological strength required to bet big. But only, and I really want to stress this, only when the odds are overwhelmingly in your favor.
This isn't about gambling. Let's be very clear about that. Gamblers rely on luck. This is about pattern recognition and striking when the math is broken in your favor. So let's settle in. We need to dismantle how we view opportunity.
Let's start with the foundation. The source material opens with a concept that I think trips a lot of people up. It says, the world is not a bell curve.
This is the crucial starting point. If you get this wrong, the rest of the strategy just feels reckless.
Most of us know what a bell curve is, vaguely. It's that shape that looked like a bell. But explain why our intuition defaults to this.
Well, think about the physical world. Let's say human height. If you grabbed 1,000 people off the street and measured them, what would you see?
Most people would be average height. You'd have a few really short people, maybe a few NBA players, but the vast majority are just bunched in the middle.
Exactly. That is a normal distribution, a bell curve. In a bell curve world, the extremes are rare and the average is where everything happens. The problem is, we take that logic and we apply it to everything.
We apply it to success, to wealth, to stock market returns.
Right. We assume that most investments are average. Some are a little better, some are a little worse.
But finance doesn't work like height.
No. The source argues that finance, and really any complex system involving human behavior, follows a power law.
Okay, let's unpack the power law.
Yeah.
How is that different from the bell curve in a practical sense?
In a power law distribution, the average is meaningless. In a power law, a tiny, tiny percentage of events account for the massive majority of results.
So like book sales.
Perfect example. The average author sells almost nothing. J.K. Rowling sells 1 billion copies. It's not evenly distributed at all.
It's the 80-20 rule, but on steroids. Maybe the 991 rule.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So here is the implication. Great opportunities are not just uncommon. They are statistically extremely rare. They don't happen every day. They don't happen every month.
See, this is where the conflict happens. If I treat the world like a bell curve, I assume opportunities are everywhere. I assume if I miss one bus, another one is coming in 10 minutes.
Right. And that creates a behavior pattern. If you think opportunities are common, you make a lot of small bets. You dabble. You put a little money here, a little effort there.
You spread yourself thin.
Exactly. Because you think everything has roughly the same potential. You're afraid to commit because you think something else might pop up tomorrow.
But if you accept the power law,
If you really internalize it, the world looks different. You realize that 99% of the things crossing your desk are just noise. They're mediocrity. But that 1%,
yeah,
that 1% isn't just better, it is exponentially better. It's the difference between a 10% return and a 10,000% return.
And that leads to the specific line in the source that really grabbed me. It's aggressive. It says, when the odds are overwhelmingly in your favor, betting small is a sin. Strong language. A sin, not a mistake. A sin. Why is that serious?
Because of the rarity. If the math says a life-changing opportunity only comes along maybe 2 or 3 times in a decade, and you treat it like a normal Tuesday, you haven't just made a mistake, you've squandered the only thing that matters.
It's like having the winning lottery numbers for tomorrow, knowing they are the winning numbers and buying a $1 ticket.
Exactly. Sure, you win, but you could have bet your house. And this is where Charlie Munger comes in. Munger is famous for being incredibly patient.
He sits on billions of dollars of cash for years.
For years. But he sums it up perfectly. He says, the wise ones bet heavily when the world offers them that opportunity.
They bet big when they have the odds.
But here's the catch. This is the part everyone forgets because it's boring, Munger adds. And the rest of the time, they don't.
They don't.
Yeah.
That implies that most of the time the wise investor is doing, well, nothing.
Absolutely nothing. And I want you to really sit with that. Doing nothing is incredibly hard. In our culture, doing nothing looks like laziness. It looks like indecision.
It feels like you're missing out. I mean, FOMO's a real thing. If your neighbor is making money on some crypto coin or a tech stock and you're just sitting there, it hurts physically.
It does. But in a power law world, doing nothing is an active strategic choice. You aren't sleeping. You are waiting. You're stalking the prey.
Waiting for what, exactly? Because waiting for a good opportunity is vague. How do you define good? This is where our second source comes in, and I love this transition.
Me too.
We're moving from the boardroom to Fenway Park. We're talking about Ted Williams.
The greatest hitter who ever lived, and the author of a book actually called The Science of Hitting.
Now, we have listeners all over the world, and baseball might not be everyone's sport, so let's set the scene very quickly.
Sure, simple mechanics. You have a pitcher standing on a mound, throwing a hard leather ball at about, say, 90 to 100 miles per hour toward a batter.
And the batter has a wooden stick and about a split second to decide, do I swing at this or do I let it go?
Right. The margin for error is it's millimeter thin. If you swing and miss, that's bad. If you let a good pitch go by, that's also bad. And the pitcher is trying to trick you, throwing the ball to different spots, high, low, inside, outside.
So Ted Williams approached this like an engineer. He didn't just see the strike zone, which is the rectangular area where you're supposed to hit the ball, as one big box.
No, he was obsessed with data before data analytics was even a thing. He mentally divided that strike zone into 77 distinct cells.
77.
Yeah. Imagine a grid of 77 baseball-sized squares floating in front of him.
That is hyper-specific.
It had to be, because he calculated his personal batting average for each of those cells. He knew his heat map, and here's what he found. If the pitcher threw the ball into his sweet spot, a specific cluster of cells right in the middle,
Okay.
and he swung, he would hit .400.
And for context, for those who don't follow the stats, a .400 batting average is basically mythical. It means you are succeeding 40% of the time, which in baseball makes you a god.
It's superstar level. But here's the contrast. If the ball was just 2 inches lower, just 2 inches, hitting the lower corners of that grid, his average would plummet to .230.
That is a massive drop from superstar to barely staying on the team.
Yeah.
For a 2-inch difference.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. A pitch in that .230 spot is still technically a strike. The umpire will call it a strike. The fans expect you to swing at it. But Williams knew the math. Swinging at a .230 pitch, even if it's a strike, is a losing proposition compared to waiting for the .400 pitch.
He knew that swinging at a mediocre pitch was essentially helping the pitcher, not himself.
Correct. So this brings us to the core concept of the fat pitch.
At the fat pitch.
It's that perfect ball right in the sweet spot where the odds are overwhelmingly in your favor. Williams' entire strategy was just discipline. He would simply refuse to swing at the balls in the .230 zone.
But that requires nerves of steel, because if he doesn't swing and it's a strike, he looks passive. He looks like he froze.
And the source mentions a specific detail here that I think is crucial for the psychology of this. It says he wouldn't swing even if the crowd booed.
That is the hardest part, the crowd factor.
Imagine the stadium, thousands of people screaming, swing, do something. Why are you just standing there?
Right.
You're standing there, the bat on your shoulder, watching the ball go by. You know it was a mediocre pitch, but to the crowd, it looked like you failed.
That social pressure to do something is intense. We feel it in our careers, in our investments. If you aren't moving, people think you're stagnant. Your boss thinks you're lazy.
Exactly. The crowd wants action. The crowd loves activity. But Williams knew that if he gave in to the crowd, if he let the social pressure dictate his strategy, he would start swinging at bad pitches.
And if he swung at bad pitches, he becomes an average player.
Right. He sacrificed public approval in the moment for long-term excellence. He waited for the fat pitch. And when he got it,
He didn't just cap it.
he swung with everything he had. He bet heavy. He knew the math was finally on his side.
So let's connect the dots here. We have the power law opportunities are rare. We have the fat pitch wait for the sweet spot. How does this translate to the world of business and investing?
Well, the analogy is surprisingly direct. In this scenario, the market is the pitcher.
The market is the pitcher.
Okay. The source says the market throws pitches every day. Every morning when the stock market opens or when you scroll through Zillow looking at houses or look at business deals, those are pitches.
Price goes up, price goes down.
The market is constantly throwing these opportunities at you.
But there is a fundamental difference between baseball and investing, isn't there? This is the part that I think gives the investor a huge advantage if they use it.
There is, and it's the secret weapon of the patient investor. Warren Buffett actually calls this no-called strike investing.
No called strikes. Explain that.
In baseball, you are forced to engage. If the pitcher throws 3 strikes and you don't swing, the umpire yells, "You're out." You have to go sit on the bench.
You can't just stand there forever.
The rules force you to take a risk. Eventually, you have to swing or you lose.
But in investing,
There are no called strikes.
you can just stand at the plate.
You can stand at the plate, bat on your shoulder for a day, a month, a year, 10 years. The market can throw General Motors at $40, Apple at $150. You can just watch them go by. You can say, nope, not my sweet spot. Nope, too expensive.
And there is no penalty.
0 penalty. You don't lose money by not buying a stock. You only strike out if you swing at a bad deal and lose your capital.
That is incredibly liberating, but also maybe paralyzing.
Yeah.
Because if you can wait forever, how do you know when to actually move?
You wait until the market throws you something so obvious, so undervalued, so perfect that it's impossible to miss. You wait for the fat pitch.
But what does a fat pitch look like in the real world? It's not a baseball floating in the air. It's a stock chart. How do you spot it?
This is where it gets uncomfortable. And this is why most people fail at this strategy. The insight here is that in investing, the fat pitch usually looks like a crisis.
A crisis. A crash.
Think about it. When is a great company like Apple or Amazon selling for pennies on the dollar? Is it when the economy is booming and everyone is happy?
No. When everyone is happy, the prices are high. That's the definition of a boom.
Exactly. The prices are high because everyone is optimistic. The fat pitch happens when everyone else is terrified, when there is a panic, when the news says the economy is collapsing.
So the fat pitch is when the crowd is booing the loudest.
Or screaming. When people are selling in a panic, prices disconnect from reality. That is when the odds shift overwhelmingly in your favor. But to swing then, to buy when everyone else is selling, that requires a level of psychological strength that most people simply do not have.
It's the buy low part. Buy low, sell high. Everyone repeats the phrase, but nobody wants to actually buy low because low feels like death.
Precisely. You have to ignore the emotional atmosphere of the entire world around you. You have to look at the data, like Ted Williams, and say, this is a .400 pitch, even if everyone else thinks the stadium is burning down.
So we have the discipline to wait. We have the courage to ignore the crowd. But there is a practical tool you need to be able to execute this. You can't bet heavy if you don't have anything to bet with.
And this brings us to the application section of our source. This is the part that changes how you manage your personal finances. We need to talk about cash as a weapon.
I love that phrasing. Cash as a weapon. Usually we think of cash as, well, just money in the bank or dry powder.
Right. And in modern finance, specifically in the last decade, people have been terrified of holding cash. We are told cash is trash.
Because of inflation, right?
Yeah.
If inflation is 3% or 5% and your cash is sitting in a checking account earning 0%, you are technically losing purchasing power every day.
That's the narrative. It burns a hole in your pocket. You feel like if your money isn't working in the market, you are losing the game. It creates this low-level anxiety.
You dump it into an index fund or a bond just to stop the bleeding. You want to feel productive.
But the source reframes this completely. It argues, don't fear holding cash, because cash is not just idle paper. Cash is a call option.
An option to do what?
It is the option to swing at the fat pitch when the market collapses. Think about the opportunity cost. If you are fully invested, if you followed the standard advice and put all your eggs in many baskets, what happens when the market crashes?
Well, my baskets all go down. My portfolio drops 30% or 40%.
And do you have any money left to buy those cheap stocks?
No, because it's all tied up in the stuff that just crashed. I'm fully deployed.
Exactly. You are stuck. You're watching the opportunity of a lifetime, the fat pitch, go right by you because you have no liquidity. You are defenseless.
So holding cash is the price you pay for the ability to act.
Yes. Maybe you lose 3% or 4% a year to inflation on that cash. Think of that loss as an insurance premium. Or better yet, an option premium.
Okay.
You are paying that small fee so that when the market drops 50%, you can step in and buy assets that might double or triple in value in the recovery.
That is a huge mindset shift. The return on cash isn't the interest rate the bank pays you. The return on cash is the value of the future opportunity it allows you to seize.
That is the strategic view. Cash is the ammunition. Without cash, you can see the fat pitch, but you can't swing. You are just a spectator. And spectators don't get rich.
It really changes the way you look at a boring savings account. It's not money doing nothing. It's ammunition waiting for the target.
Correct. And that brings us back to Munger's point. The wise ones bet heavily when the world offers them that opportunity. You have to be ready, you have to be liquid, and you have to be decisive.
It sounds almost militant, but it makes sense. If the opportunities are that rare, you have to protect your ability to seize them.
You have to protect your ammunition. It's about maximizing luck. If the universe finally hands you a gift, you don't want to be in a position where you can only take a tiny slice. You want the whole cake.
So let's try to synthesize all of this. We've covered a lot of ground, from bell curves to baseball stadiums. What are the key takeaways for you?
The core message is simpler than it seems, but much harder to execute. Number one, the world follows a power law. Most opportunities are average. A few are life-changing. Ignore the average.
Okay.
Number two, you need the discipline of Ted Williams. Divide the world into sweet spots and bad pitches. Know your criteria.
And stick to it.
And stick to it. Number three, you must be willing to do nothing for long periods. You must let the bad pitches go by, specifically when the crowd is pressuring you to swing. And number four, when the fat pitch comes, usually during a crisis, you must have the cash ready and you must swing hard.
Betting small is a sin.
That's the line that's going to stick with me. It's about respecting the rarity of the moment.
It is. It's about recognizing that safety isn't about hedging every bet.
Yeah.
Real safety comes from knowing exactly what you are swinging at.
It sounds so logical when we sit here and talk about it. Just wait, ignore the noise, and pounce. But as you mentioned earlier, the emotional toll of this strategy is heavy. It is the hardest thing in the world, because to execute this, you have to be honest with yourself about what a fat pitch actually is.
Right. You have to know if it's really a sweet spot or if you just want it to be a sweet spot because you're bored of waiting.
Exactly. Our brains are wired to trick us. We see patterns where there are none. We convince ourselves that a mediocre opportunity is a great one just so we can feel the rush of action. We lie to ourselves to relieve the tension of doing nothing.
To bet heavy, you must be honest with yourself. But our brains love to lie. And that actually sets us up perfectly for the next deep dive. In episode 7, we are going to tackle the most dangerous lie of all: psychological denial.